Charles Redmond had everything a person could dream of. He owned a big company, flew in private jets, lived in a house that looked like a palace, and had more money than he could ever spend. Reporters always wanted to interview him in business. Magazines often called him the king of innovation. But behind all that success and power, there was something he could not fix. Something that broke his heart every single day. His daughter Emily could not walk. Emily Redmond was only 10 years old, but she had already gone through so much pain. She was not born with any problem. In fact, when she was a baby, she was very healthy. She crawled early, walked early, and was full of energy. But when she was about 4 years old, things started to change. She would fall often. Her legs would feel weak. Doctors first thought she was just tired or playing too much. But then she stopped walking completely. Charles and his wife Victoria were shocked and scared. They rushed her to the best hospitals. They spent millions taking her to top doctors in Switzerland, Germany, Japan, and the United States. Every doctor had a different idea. Some said it was nerve damage. Others said it was a muscle problem. Some even said it could be psychological. But in the end, none of them could make her walk again. Victoria tried to stay strong, always holding Emily's hand and telling her, "We will find a way." But every time another treatment failed, it became harder to believe that. Emily, once a cheerful and curious little girl, became very quiet. She stopped talking much. She didn't smile often. Her wheelchair became a part of her life, and she slowly stopped hoping for change. Charles, the powerful CEO who could control boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, felt helpless. No amount of money could buy his daughter's happiness or health. He offered rewards for any doctor who could find a cure. He even started funding research. Nothing worked. One day, after a long meeting in New York, Charles came home to find Emily sitting alone in the garden, looking at the flowers, but not touching them. Her legs just hung there, still and lifeless. That night he told Victoria, "Let's take her somewhere quiet. No more hospitals for now. Just peace." Victoria agreed. They decided to go to a private countryside resort far from the city, where there would be no reporters, no doctors, and no pressure. Just fresh air, quiet trees, and time together. Emily didn't say much when she was told. She simply nodded and packed her books and sketch pad. The resort was located on the edge of a quiet farming village. It had wide green fields, clear skies, and the smell of wildflowers. Emily liked the view from her room. It was peaceful. Charles spent his days reading by the fire and walking with Victoria, while Emily watched birds and drew in her sketch pad. For a while, things felt a little better. But Emily still couldn't walk. That pain remained. Then something unexpected happened. One morning, Emily's wheelchair slipped on a small slope while the family was walking through the nearby village. It wasn't a big accident, but it scared her. She screamed as her chair leaned to the side. Thankfully, she didn't fall, but the moment caught the attention of people nearby. A man ran forward. He wasn't dressed in fancy clothes. His boots were old, his shirt had patches, and his hands were dark from years of working in the soil. He gently checked on Emily and made sure she was safe. Before the bodyguards could push him away, he looked up at Charles and said softly, "I can help." Charles was confused. "Help with what?" he asked. "With her legs," the man replied. "Let me try." Charles didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. This man looked like a simple farmer. What could he do that world-class doctors couldn't? "Who are you?" Victoria asked kindly. "My name is Isaac," he replied. "I work on a nearby herb farm, but I also do muscle work. My grandmother taught me when I was a child. I've helped others before." Charles shook his head. He didn't want to waste time. But Victoria paused. She saw something different in Isaac's eyes, not pride, not greed, just calm faith. "What do you need?" she asked him. "Just 7 days. I'll come each morning and evening. No cost, no machines, just trust." Charles was still unsure. Didn't want to give Emily false hope. But Victoria held his arm and whispered, "We've tried everything else. What's the harm?" Charles agreed, though he remained doubtful. Isaac smiled gently and said, "Thank you. I will come tomorrow at sunrise." That night, Charles stayed up late, wondering if he had made a mistake. He didn't believe in magic or village traditions. believed in science, research, and proven methods. But still, there was something honest about that man, something peaceful. Emily didn't know what to think either, but she was curious. For the first time in a long time, someone had said, "Let me try," without talking about money or medicine. The next morning, Isaac came right on time, brought with him a small bag of natural oils and herbs. He washed his hands and gently placed a soft towel on the floor. He asked Emily to sit, and then he began. His hands were strong, but gentle. He didn't talk much at first, just hummed a soft tune as he massaged her legs, repressed specific points, worked the muscles, and rubbed warm oil in slow circles.
After
20 minutes, he said, "We are done for today." Emily blinked. "That's it?" "Yes," he smiled. "Tomorrow, we continue." As the days passed, Emily started looking forward to Isaac's visits. He would tell her funny stories about goats and chickens, canned stories his grandmother told him about healing people with nothing but hands and kindness. Emily began laughing again. Her cheeks had color once more. On the 5th day, while Isaac was working on her feet, Emily suddenly said, "I can feel something." Isaac paused and smiled. "Good, that means your legs are listening." Charles, standing behind the curtain, heard everything. He didn't say a word. He just stood very still, trying to believe what he was hearing. Emily began to wiggle one toe, just one, but it moved. Victoria gasped. Charles stepped closer. Isaac only nodded and said, "It is not magic. The body remembers. It just needs the right touch." The story was just beginning. Emily didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change because someone who had nothing to gain whispered the words that no expert had said in 6 years. "Let me try." Let me know when you're ready for part 2, and I'll expand it next in the same simple, engaging style. Charles and Victoria watched closely as Isaac arrived the next morning. He was a simple man, dressed in worn clothes and carrying a small bag, yet there was something calm and kind in his eyes that made them feel hopeful. Isaac greeted Emily with a soft smile and sat down quietly beside her. He did not bring any machines or fancy tools like the doctors had before. Instead, he only had his hands, some warm oil, and a gentle touch. Isaac began by massaging Emily's legs slowly and carefully. He knew which spots to press and rub, learned from his grandmother who had helped many people in their village. Had told him that sometimes, when medicine fails, love and care could still heal. Emily, who had been quiet and sad for so long, began to feel something new. The warmth of Isaac's hands and the soft oil soothed her skin. Isaac told her stories about the farm, about how the wind moves the leaves, and how the sun gives life to the earth. His voice was soft and steady. Emily smiled for the first time. In a long while, Charles stayed near the door, watching, but not interfering. First he thought this was just a kind man doing a small favor. But as the days went by, he began to notice something different. Emily was not only smiling more, she was becoming stronger. Her legs, which had been so weak, were starting to react. Isaac came every morning and every evening without fail. He was not a doctor, but his knowledge of the body and his care were special. He told Charles and Victoria that healing took time, and patience was the most important medicine. On the 3rd day, Emily surprised everyone. While Isaac was massaging her right foot, she moved one of her toes slightly. It was a tiny movement, but to the family, it was like a miracle. Victoria's eyes filled with tears and Charles felt a lump in his throat. Doctors had told them this might never happen. But here was proof that the human body could still respond, even after years of pain, Isaac explained. The body remembers, even if it forgets how to move. We just need to wake it up slowly. He smiled gently at Emily, who was now looking curious and hopeful. Each day Isaac's work was the same, but different. He talked less about what he was doing and more about calming Emily's spirit. Sometimes he sang soft songs from his village. Other times he shared simple wisdom about nature and strength. Emily looked forward to these moments. She no longer felt trapped in her wheelchair. She felt connected to the world again. The local villagers began to hear about the millionaire's daughter and the poor farmer who was helping her. Some thought it was strange. Others doubted Isaac's abilities. But no one could deny that Emily was changing. Charles faced questions from his board and his friends. Why trust a farmer? Why stop expensive treatments? They asked. But Charles knew that sometimes money and science were not enough. He had to follow what his heart told him. One afternoon, after Isaac finished his work, Emily suddenly said, I think I can move my left foot. Victoria and Charles exchanged surprised looks. Isaac smiled softly and said, Let's try. With Isaac's help, Emily focused all her strength. Slowly, she moved her left foot. Just a little bit. It was not walking yet, but it was progress. The first time in years, Emily's eyes sparkled with hope. The next few days were filled with small victories. Emily could move her feet more, feel the muscles in her legs waking up. She even started to hold herself upright with support. Charles felt a deep gratitude toward Isaac. This man, no fancy degree or title, was giving his daughter something. Priceless hope. One evening, Victoria asked Isaac, How did you learn to do this? Isaac smiled and said, My grandmother taught me long ago. In our village, we don't always have doctors. We learn to use our hands and care for each other. Healing is not just medicine, it is love. Charles sat quietly, thinking about how much money and power he had, yet this humble man was teaching him about true healing. But Isaac was clear, he did not want fame or money. I only want to help, he said. If Emily can walk again, that is enough. Emily was beginning to believe. Every small step gave her courage. Every gentle touch from Isaac reminded her that she was not alone. Charles and Victoria realized that sometimes answers come from the most unexpected places. The journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead. But for the first time, the family could see light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. Emily's story was becoming a story of faith, patience, and the healing power of kindness. Let me know when you want me to continue with part 3. Charles and Victoria watched carefully as the days went by. Isaac came every morning and evening, always on time. He never complained, no matter how hard the work was or how little rest he got. His hands, strong from years of farming, moved gently. On Emily's legs, pressed, rubbed, and stretched in ways that only he knew. It was not like the machines or medicine they had tried before. It was simple, natural, and full of care. Emily began to change. Little by little, she started feeling warmth and sometimes a tingling in her legs. At first, she did not understand it. But Isaac told her that feeling means your body is waking up. Emily listened to him, trusting the farmer more than she had trusted anyone in a long time. One day, while Isaac was massaging her feet, Emily suddenly moved her left foot a little. It was very small, almost unnoticeable, but it was there. Victoria gasped softly. Charles's eyes filled with tears. It was the first movement in years. Doctors had told them to be careful not to expect too much. They said sometimes these small movements can be temporary or caused by the mind trying to heal itself. But Charles and Victoria didn't want to lose hope again. They stayed silent but hopeful. Isaac told them, healing is slow. We must be patient and kind to the body. He smiled at Emily and said, You are stronger than you think. Every day, Emily tried to move a little more. Isaac helped her with gentle exercises. He showed her how to stretch and how to focus. On the muscles in her legs, he never rushed her. We go step by step, he said. Emily's confidence grew. She started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could walk again. The laughter that had been missing for years came back. She told Isaac about her favorite animals and her dreams to play outside with other children. Charles noticed how Isaac's calm presence brought peace to their home. The family began to heal together. The heavy sadness started to lift. Even Victoria smiled more. Outside the resort, the small village was watching. Some people whispered about the millionaire's daughter and the poor farmer helping her. Some were surprised and happy. Others were skeptical. How could a farmer help a child when big hospitals could not? But Isaac did not care about opinions. His focus was on Emily. His hands kept working, his heart full of hope. One afternoon, Charles spoke quietly to Isaac. How do you do this? You have no medical degree? You are not a famous doctor. Isaac smiled and said, I have my grandmother's lessons. In my village, when someone is hurt, we use our hands, our herbs, and love to heal. Medicine is not always in books. Sometimes it is in kindness and patience. Larch thought deeply about these words. He had spent his life chasing money and power. Now, he was learning that the greatest power was the simple touch of a caring hand. Emily's progress surprised even Isaac. On the 6th day, she moved her left foot more clearly. Then, she tried to wiggle her toes. It was small, but it was real. Victoria held Emily's hand and whispered, You are amazing. That night, Charles sat beside Emily's bed. He told her, You are brave, and we all believe in you. Emily smiled softly and said, I want to walk again, Isaac promised. We will work together, one step at a time. The story was not yet over. There were still many days to come, but the family could feel something special was happening. Hope was growing like a small light inside them all. If you'd like, I can continue with part 4 whenever you're ready. Isaac arrived at the resort early the next morning, as he always did, carrying his small bag with the warm oils and herbs he used for his treatments. He greeted Emily with a gentle smile, and she returned it with a little more hope in her eyes than before. Over the past week, she had begun to feel changes in her legs, small but important ones, and today felt different. Charles and Victoria watched from a distance, quietly hoping and praying. They had been through so much already, years of hospitals, treatments, and disappointments. But now, a simple farmer with no formal medical training was giving them something they had not felt in a long time, real hope. Isaac sat beside Emily and began his gentle massage. His hands moved carefully over her legs, pressing and rubbing in the way his grandmother had taught him many years ago. He worked slowly, never rushing, knowing that healing was a journey, not a race. He talked softly to Emily as he worked, telling her stories about the earth, the animals, and the quiet power of nature. Your body is waking up, Isaac said quietly. It listens to your heart and your mind. We just need to help it remember how to move. Emily looked at him with wide eyes. For the first time in a long time, she believed it might be true. After the massage, Isaac helped Emily stand. She was scared. Her legs felt weak, and she was not sure if she could hold herself up. But Isaac held her hand firmly, giving her strength without pushing her too hard. Just one step, Isaac said. You can do it. Emily took a deep breath and lifted one foot. It trembled, but she put it down in front of her. Isaac's steady hand holding hers, she took another step. It was small, unsteady, but real. Charles and Victoria could hardly believe their eyes. Tears streamed down Victoria's face as Charles quietly whispered, Thank you. Duh. The room was filled with quiet joy and wonder. Emily had taken her first steps in years. Isaac smiled, but he was careful to remind them all to be patient. This is just the beginning. We will work every day, and soon she will walk without help. In the following days, Emily practiced walking with Isaac's support. She learned to balance and trust her legs again. Each day brought new strength and confidence. She laughed more, played with her sketchpad, and dreamed of running outside with other children. The village people began to talk more about the miracle happening at the resort. News reporters tried to find Isaac, but he politely declined interviews. He said his work was not for fame or money. He only wanted to help those in need. Charles, who had once believed only in power and money, had learned a new lesson, that healing comes from the heart and hands of someone who cares. Emily's story spread far beyond the village. People from many places heard about the poor farmer who helped the millionaire's daughter walk again. It was a story of hope, kindness, and the power of belief. One evening, Charles sat with Isaac. By the fire, you have changed my family's life, he said. How can I ever thank you? Isaac shook his head. Just keep helping others, he replied simply. That is all I ask. Emily looked up at the two men and smiled. She was no longer a child trapped by illness. She was a child filled with hope and the promise of a bright future. The journey was far from over, but Emily's first steps had shown that miracles could happen when people believed in each other. Let me know when you want me to write part 5. The morning sun rose gently over the quiet countryside, casting warm light across the fields and trees. Emily stood by the window of her room, watching the birds fly freely outside. She had come a long way from the little girl who couldn't walk for years. Now, after weeks of hard work and hope, she was ready to try something she hadn't done in a very long time: walk without help. Isaac arrived as usual, carrying his small bag filled with oils and herbs. Boy smiled warmly when he saw Emily standing with a little support from her father. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Emily nodded, her eyes shining with determination. Charles and Victoria stood nearby, holding their breath, their hearts filled with both hope and fear. This was a big moment. One step could change everything. Isaac took Emily's hand and led her outside into the fresh air. The soft grass felt cool beneath their feet. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the earth beneath her shoes. Isaac whispered, "Just one step, little one. You can do this." With slow and steady movement, Emily lifted one foot and placed it firmly on the ground. Her legs shook, but she did not fall. Encouraged by Isaac's calm presence, she took another step, then another. Each step was a victory, a sign that her body was healing and her spirit growing stronger. Charles and Victoria watched with tears streaming down their faces. After years of struggle and pain, their daughter was walking again. The joy in their hearts was beyond words. Emily's steps became more confident with every moment. She laughed and smiled, feeling the freedom she had lost so long ago. Isaac stayed close, ready to support her whenever needed, but Emily was growing stronger fast. News of Emily's progress spread quickly. The story of the millionaire CEO's daughter and the poor farmer who helped her became an inspiration too. Many people traveled from far and wide to see the young girl who had defied all odds. Charles and Victoria decided to build a special center in the village, dedicated to helping children and adults with similar challenges. They named it the Emily Grace Healing Center, a place where love, care, and hope would guide every step toward recovery. Isaac was asked to lead the center's traditional therapy department. At first, he hesitated. He was a simple farmer, not used to the world of wealth and fame. But he agreed on one condition: the treatments would remain free for those who could not afford them. The center quickly became a beacon of hope. Children who had lost their way in darkness found light there. They learned that healing was possible, with patience, kindness, and belief. Emily continued to walk, run, and even dance. Her spirit soared higher than ever. She never forgot the man who had whispered, "Let me try," when no one else could help. Isaac's hands had touched not just her body, but her soul. Charles often spoke about the lessons he had learned. "Your money can buy many things," he said, "but it cannot buy hope. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from the simplest hearts." Emily grew up strong and happy, surrounded by love and the promise of a bright future. She knew that life's true wealth was found not in riches, but in kindness, faith, and the courage to keep moving forward. And in a small village, the farmer with calloused hands became a legend, not for what he owned, but for what he gave. Hope to a little girl who could walk again. If you'd like, I can also help create image prompts or summaries for this story. Ask ChatGPT.